The past may seem distant. Often we see it almost as a figment of our imagination, something that once was and never will be again. More often than not, when asked on the street, most people will simply reply something along those lines. Maybe cite history, maybe something they heard in the media a few days ago, or recall their youthful years. However, hardly anyone has given the past enough thought to notice that is in fact something that is very present today, and that is not something that happened once, some time ago, to someone, somewhere. The past is in fact a living being. It is present within us at all times, and the fact that lessons it grants us give us insight into the human condition, as well as what the future holds in store. The past is very real, very present phenomena. It is alive and well, and in fact surrounds us each day. The past is a very real, very present phenomena. It is alive and well, and in fact surrounds us each day. It is the whispers of the dead long past. It is the creaking of ancient buildings that still stand. It is the architecture that surrounds us. The past is hardly dead, and if anything, it is reaching out towards us and begging for our attention, desperately begging for us to learn from it, study it, and to successfully move forward, avoiding the age-old mistakes of our ancestors. The past, simply speaking, surrounds us. It is in the streets we walk on. It is the architecture around us. Civilization has been developing for tens of thousands of years, and upon the ruins of our ancient ancestors we have built these civilizations. The cathedrals, the Parthenon, the Sphinx were not built in one day, and neither did they cease to influence the world one day. Instead, they stand as totems, as obelisks of inspiration of generations to come would derive their future passions from. They stand looming over us today. Many European cities have their roots in the early Iron Age, and if you decide to dig down, you might just be surprised by what you will find. The living past does not only pertain to architecture, rather it seems to pertain to everything within our societies and civilizations. Art is another such example, that no matter what techniques we import or export, each region maintains a certain style. Within its architecture, this is blatantly visible. Within its art, it is equally visible. Art, music, preferences for foods are all something that is inherent to one region. One cannot visit a country and avoid its local cuisine, the smells, the character of the city square, because the spirit permeates everywhere and through everything. When one listens to music from a region, he is not only listening to it now, but he is listening to a work of art of minds of that region that had imprinted their character and attitude into the musical piece that still remains almost unchanged today. Quite literally, voices from the past. This can also be applied to how people think. Visiting a place, any region in this world, even if the borders are unknown and everyone spoke one language, one would still, regardless of the seeming lack of barriers and evident walls enforced by men with rifles and barbed wire fences, be able to recognize that he is in a new place. Different places breed different methods of thought, and as such culture, and this culture is carried by the specific people and can only be understood by them and no one else, because it is not detached from their nature, rather it is intimately linked to their nature. Culture is not something separate from blood, but rather it is a metaphysical, immaterial manifestation of blood coming into contact with the soil of a specific region for a long enough time to produce rituals, rites of passage, and even methods of thinking that are catered specifically to groups' tolerances and their innermost spirit. This pertains to the above two examples as well. People have tolerances, they have tastes, they enjoy certain sounds differently, and this will never change. You can transplant them into another culture entirely, and they will still, upon hearing their original culture, be drawn to it. One may compare this as a moth flying towards a flame. However, this implies the moth will inevitably be burnt. It is flying, lulled, towards a greater danger that it seemingly cannot resist. This is not the case for any ethnic people. Rather, this is the opposite. They aren't flying towards a flame. They are moving towards their roots, seeking the source of their being, seeking to be amongst those most similar to them that for some reason feel the same way they do. A man returning to his homeland may see in every other woman his mother and sisters, in each man his brother's father and himself. Even if he cannot understand them, their bond is something greater. The moment he enters the borders of his people, the experience is like none other. It is like finding a missing piece of oneself. It provides grounding for one's own experience and makes life that much more enjoyable and pleasant, as it seems the world is catering towards your desires and needs. To acknowledge such difference of taste, desires, methods of thinking, and preference, all elements of an ethnicity and ethnic composition, all elements of a nation and its people, is not racist, nor is it hateful. Rather, it is appreciative of what actually exists, and what tens of thousands of years of struggle, conflict, famine, disease have managed to produce. The insurmountable challenge of survival has produced such a wonderful world full of wonderful peoples that to simply mix them together, dissipate them into an amoebic mass, seems criminal. And criminal it is. The past is not some random element, not something that happened to someone, somewhere. It is alive and well today. The past does not stop working or existing simply because there is something new today, or tomorrow, or that it seems often irrelevant today. The past is an integral element, not only of ourselves, but the many people who surround us. It is the part of modern civilization that sprung from the roots of its primordial struggle, the struggle which produced the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the medieval period, and the Renaissance. These periods, all inspired by the one before them, existing in the same places as those before them, building, expanding, growing into magnificent civilizations that we see today, and a beautifully diverse people that we can all appreciate today. The past is not irrelevant. It is not dead or dying. It is well and alive. And we best learn to accept that it is beating within our hearts, within us. Before we place down our individual stone on the tower that is civilization, we best make sure that we aren't ignoring the past, and as such, digging a hole instead.